You guys have the pleasure of being joined by David Bokman. He is the absolute man, originally from Philly area, but he's living in Florida now, which we're going to talk about. You may have seen on some of the emails that we've been sending out this week for this live podcast interview. But we originally did a podcast interview about 2 years ago when we first met, and very successful guy, both in the sense of business, family. I definitely like to pick his brain just on entrepreneurship and personal matters, book recommendations, things like that. So I was excited that David was open to doing a case study on InvestorFuse and how him and his team utilize it, and kind of just what has made him successful in his business over the years. He has a nice, relatively long real estate experience and even longer sales and marketing background. So I'm excited to introduce him to you guys. A couple quick housekeeping things. One, if you want to see, we recorded previously a screen share portion of the interview, which is David going through his InvestorFuse and also his Carrot site, which is a little sneak peek of how he's generating a lot of leads and doing a lot of his business. If you want to see that, which I'm assuming you do if you registered and you're on live here, shoot us an email, answers@investorfuse.com, and we'll be happy to send you that over. We just wanted to clip that up just so we could blur out some of the seller information and property information, just to be as respectful as possible for everybody. So that's the reason why we email that out separately. So you can send us an email, answers@investorfuse.com, which I'll put in the chat really quick, to see that portion of the recorded screen share interview that David and I did a couple of weeks ago. And then this is going to be live, of course, if you guys are on live now watching this. We're also going to have a nice Q&A portion towards the end of this interview for David to ask him anything and everything about life, business, whatever he has going on. So to conclude the housekeeping, DB, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate you and I appreciate your time.
My man, thank you as always. I'm always happy to assist any way that I can. And yeah, man, it's been great knowing you these last 2 years. And for anyone that hasn't reached out to you, they should, for sure. You're a wealth of knowledge, but it's been great not only to talk to you about business, but also personal things. And I'm glad we take a lot of stuff offline. So I'm absolutely happy to help anytime I can.
I appreciate that, man. And I echo that the same, if not louder, in regards to you. But awesome, guys. I see everybody in here. Everybody can hear me and see David and myself. I see some chats coming in. Awesome. So David, let's just talk a little intro on you. I talked about sales, marketing background, real estate. Would love to hear just an introduction on you before we get cracking here.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man. So a little bit about me, David Bokman. First and foremost, I'm a father. I'm not a husband, but I am a loyal boyfriend. Me and my partner have a beautiful 3-year-old, so she is my partner, and that is first and foremost. I'm a family man. Second, I'm a lifelong martial artist, as me and you talk about. I've been training since I was 5 years old. For those of you that don't know, I'm 41, so hopefully I'm still looking good these days. But I'm also an entrepreneur, and I'm also a real estate investor. And when I say investor, obviously I've been running a wholesaling company for the last 5 years. I do a handful of flips. I have some rental properties. So a little bit of everything, but that is who I am, and love to share anything that I can with the guests today.
Yeah, for sure, man. How'd you get into real estate?
Man, it absolutely fell on my lap. I'm sure, like a lot of people listening to this, or people that will listen to this, for many years, I was probably stuck in the rat race. My parents immigrated here from Russia in the late 70s, hoping for a better life for their family. I was born here, and I'm sure, like a lot of people, my parents really pressed, go to school, get a job, get a career. But if I could be quite honest, that was just never my thing, man. I was the kid that was cutting class and cheating on tests and doing whatever I could just to get it over with, But my parents were both entrepreneurs, and I knew eventually that is what I would do. But I got stuck in the rat race, and for 15 years of my life, maybe more, I was in the corporate world. I was a medical device rep. So I covered multiple states, multiple cities. And I sold everything from surgical equipment to, $1 million MRI machines. And I was making good money. I had the expense account, I had the salary and commission, what most people try to get, right? Everybody wants that six-figure a year salary, that comfort. But for me, I would get a job, I would do really, really well because I'd be really excited, and then it would fade. And you know what would happen? I'd probably get fired. Because
Mhm.
that's what the real world is about, right? It's you either make it or you don't, especially in the sales world. It's either sink or swim. So for 15 years of my life, I went from company to company to company, convincing myself this is what I wanted to do. And then at one point, I just looked at my one of my managers at that time, and I was like, man, I don't want this life. It's 40, 50, 60 hours a week work, always on call, traveling, never see your family, which I didn't have at that time anyway, but that was always the thing that prevented me from starting a family, right?
Mhm.
And then I just knew something needed to change. And then my brother-in-law just kind of threw this wholesaling book on my lap 6 years ago, and the rest is history from there. So that's how I got into it, was just pure timing, just being ready for a change, and the universe just opening up and giving me, a sign.
Mhm.
And most people, when they first see wholesaling, they don't really understand it. But working in the corporate world for the last 15 years, I did understand it because there were plenty of distributors or wholesale companies. I also knew people in my network that were in real estate and also wholesaling. So that term was very familiar to me. I knew what it was.
Mhm.
And that was just kind of the start of really the last 6 years.
Mhm.
But
That's crazy. It's been six
pure,
years.
yeah, pure coincidental, man. Pure
Mhm.
coincidental. Yeah.
Love it. So quick as a side note, your overall exit strategy right now includes wholesaling and what else?
That's the main thing that I want to do is I
Yeah,
want to
mainly
wholesale.
wholesaling.
And then
Cool.
after if it doesn't work as a wholesale deal, then we'll look at different avenues. Is it something that we could potentially flip? Because I do have like a GC partner and some other guys that I work with. Obviously people that I've worked with and built within the last few years within my network.
Mhm.
Is it something potentially that I want to keep as a rental? I do own some vacant land throughout the city, so maybe it's a piece of land that I want to hold on to. But we'll look at different options. We'll also present the ability to list the property for people. I have a bunch of real estate agents that I work with, and I've created that kind of synergy where, I'll give them deals, they'll give me deals,
Mhm.
right? So we do that back and forth. I really try to squeeze the juice out of every single deal, but my first and foremost preference is to wholesale the deal. I don't want to do anything else with it.
Perfect. I just wanted to give that context for everybody that's listening. I'm going to ask about marketing and lead generation. And I think that's going to be a good segue for how you had an intention to be online and an emphasis on branding when you started 6 years ago. But let's talk marketing and lead gen with a broad stroke here. What
Yeah.
did that look like starting off, and how's that been the last 6 years? And a lot of this conversation is going to be the last year just because it's been so affected with people making decisions based on the pandemic and everything like that.
Yeah. So I'll kind of give you everything that's been going on, and if you want to dive into specific areas, we can do that. And I'm sure everyone's aware of what's going on right now with the SMS and the ringless voicemail that's happening. Are you familiar with that, Carlos?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
so when I got into wholesaling back, it's not even that long ago, 5, 6 years ago, majority of the people back then were majority of the other wholesalers that I knew, even the larger guys, were doing direct mail, like bandit signs or cold calling, the typical things that they tell you to do.
Hmm.
But being a professional in my 30s, also running a small internet company back in the day, I just knew the importance of building credibility and focusing on online. Going back to my corporate days as a sales rep, there's nothing better than waking up in the morning and having leads in your email bin. those are the most motivated leads you can get. It's somebody reaching out to you. You're not doing anything other than just having like this banner in the sky, right? But it's the internet sky. So I knew from day one that was going to be the most important thing. And that was the only way that I would be able to compete against everyone else. I can't compete in direct mail. I can't compete in the cold calling. It's not my thing. And so this was the most effective way for me. So everything from social media to Google PPC to SEO, and I just slowly started to build it. And I'm sure people are going to ask how much I spent. If I go back to my very first year, I was literally spending, people are going to laugh, somewhere between like $500 and $1,000 a month. Total. Obviously, as I went on and on, that went up to $25,000 a month. And it's gone down and up and down and up as I've had to. But that is where my focus has been. Now, with that being said, I've tested and tried everything else. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't work for me. But I've found that for me personally, this is the best way to compete, and it's the best way to grow my brand and my business. I think, like I've mentioned to you last time, I'm one of the few companies that has Google reviews, and they're all five-star. It's not something that I started to do in the beginning, which I should have done. I started concentrating on it in the last year or two, but we've got over 50, 60 Google reviews, and I continue to push the credibility. So that is, in a nutshell, that's my marketing strategy, and I continue to do that to this day. Google ads, and I continue to work on SEO. I update my site regularly, and obviously a lot of things have changed over the last year, but that is my main focus.
Love it. 2 quick points, guys. For those of you listening live, I put the email in the chat, answers plural @investorfuse.com. Shoot us an email if you want to see the screen share of me and David going through his operation. Part of that is going through his Carrot site, and he has it beautifully laid out with the Google review screenshots on his Carrot site. We go through all that in addition to his InvestorFuse. Second, what advice, because I see a lot of people on here, Ricky Howell, a lot of people that are already established in their operation as wholesalers or direct to seller investors. What's your best advice to help improve credibility and just digital marketing in general, if they're not just starting off from the beginning, if they have some experience and they've been rock and rolling for a little bit?
I mean, if you have experience, the best way to, what's everybody doing this nowadays, right? They're going to Google.
Right.
Who are these guys? So if your website looks like every other website and it doesn't have like pictures of you and your family, like, are you a real person? You know what I mean? Or are you just like some blanket, Dave buys PA, is that who you are? So they're going to these websites. You can see it through all the analytics. They're going to the websites, and so the number one page that they're always going to is your homepage, obviously. You know what number 2 is? It's the company page. It's the about us. Do you have any reviews? So if you're experienced and you've been doing this for a year or two and you just have a generic site, start taking the time to either do it yourself or to pay somebody to do it. That's something that is somewhat inexpensive that you can do right now that'll create some benefit. Also, just make sure you have a Facebook page. I mean, people are going to Facebook. People are going to Yelp. I mean, I think everyone's going online at this point to see if this person is real or not. Maybe you want to join the Better Business Bureau. Those are some things that could stand out, as far as credibility. A lot of people talk about YouTube videos and things like that. And literally my own digital guys are telling me, do more videos, even if it's, I hate doing them.
Me telling you to do like 2 years ago after we did an interview, I'm like, dude, keep putting the YouTube videos out.
Yeah. So, I did here and there. It's consistency with that. I don't really have a passion for that. More and more people are trying to get me to like speak more, and maybe I will at some point. But those are things that you can do that won't really cost anything, really, other than your time. And will score really big in the long run with credibility. What people need to understand with online is that, unless you have a large budget for Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever, it takes time, right? So the first thing you need to change, especially if you're a new guy listening to this, or maybe you're even in your first year, but one of the things you have to change is your mindset that you're going to be a millionaire in a month. Like that's just not going to happen in this business. You can create an amazing life, but you have to like be realistic about where you're going and where you think you can be, within the next steps. And I think a lot of people, get into this thinking that deals are just going to like flow, right? And I knew from the get-go that I was laying the bricks, because if you start now with SEO and Google and all this stuff, it's harder for other people to catch up. Does that make sense? I hope people are following that. So I'm talking to the people that don't have a website or aren't really spending a lot of time with Google ads. And I see people asking about budget. It doesn't matter about budget, just start somewhere. Maybe not Google PPC because it's expensive. Maybe you look at Facebook because it's still a little bit cheaper, or Microsoft Bing, which is also cheaper. You're going to get different types of people on those platforms, but you got to start somewhere. If you don't have some type of digital presence, the big guys are just going to dominate the market. And it'll be very, very difficult. And the reason why I asked you about the ringless voicemail and text message is I personally know a lot of people, that's their main method for marketing. So what happens when you're no longer allowed to send letters, you're no longer allowed to cold call, you're no longer allowed to do ringless voicemail and text messaging? What are you going to do? You're going to gravitate towards online where people already have a presence. So if you're not doing it now, you should be. And it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. So just start. Like I said, like I told people in the beginning, $500 a month is what I was spending the first few months. That's crazy, but you got to start somewhere. Right. So that would be my advice.
Love it. A lot of good things to unpack there. And I see you guys chatting in questions. Feel free to put those in the chat, or you'll see a Q&A icon towards the bottom center of the screen. That'll be a little bit more efficient for me to line those up. Pablo is, go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt. I just see one question.
No,
someone says, if I don't have a budget for PPC, okay, if you don't have a budget, you got to start doing what's called guerrilla marketing. Guerrilla marketing is basically using everything you can for free. What is that? That's every single social media platform. It's it's Craigslist. It's going on Bigger Pockets and getting a network. You have to do something. If you don't have a budget at all for online ads, maybe that's when you start doing direct mail or something, doing handwritten postcards, but you have to start doing something, but in terms of digital presence, you can get on Facebook, you can create a business page, you can do all that stuff, so I would say start with that if you don't have a budget for any ads.
And I would even say part of the guerrilla marketing, or a subset of the guerrilla marketing, would just be getting reviews on the Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't, you don't have a Google page or whatever, you can do the same thing with Facebook. It's just about starting. And I think that's where a lot of people, get hung up.
Yeah. Pablo, feel free to chat in what you're doing marketing wise. I know that we've chatted before. And for those of you who are in the market or can't afford Google pay-per-click, my top pay-per-click provider, digital marketing provider, is actually live on this call right now. Greg Bilbro, the CEO of geoflip. He's multiple times been on our podcast and is our go-to provider for PPC. So I'll go ahead and put in his website where you can actually chat with him directly. I refer him at least once a week to investors that are looking to up their digital marketing game, and not more so at the beginning side where you want to do the guerrilla, optimize this stuff that you can do for free, but more so can just outsource and delegate that out.
And just to give people like some context, like when I first started, I had a very basic GoDaddy site that I made myself, which I didn't even know anything about website design. You know what I mean? Like I literally did it myself, and then eventually, as I realized I needed something better, that's when I went into a Carrot site, right? But then I knew I was always updating it as I've had it. And then eventually, it's at the point where it's at now. Everything has evolved over time. It's not like I just started right out the gate, doing deals and generating leads, it took some time. But I just want to give everybody some context. Like I literally started with a website that I built myself. I'm also in the Philadelphia market, which is extremely, extremely competitive. One of the top markets in the city, and I'm pretty much in page one for like most things at this point. I'm there somewhere. You can't miss me. So, but I just want to give everyone some context that it didn't just start like this. It took some groundwork and some time on my end.
The context is very much appreciated because a lot of the times, especially these days in this industry, people see the overnight success or people just doing really, really well without kind of seeing how they got into it. So I love building that social proof.
Yeah, of course, man. You see all that.
Mindset.
You see all the guru ads, and they're in the Lamborghinis, and I mean, everybody's and listen, I get what they're doing, but it's a very small group of people that end up that way. Everyone else is really just trying to make a change for themselves and their family. So just being realistic and setting realistic goals, and just putting the work in and letting time do its course.
One quick subset question before we start talking kind of team structure and maybe even some changes that you've done to marketing. I know you said you started out with as little as 500 a month for digital stuff and have increased that substantially. Can you give a quick debrief on the latest regulations for RVM texting? I know that we had Vincent Harris on. I don't know if you saw that, the co-founder of REI Rail, which is a popular lead gen tool. And he was talking about some, I believe, Supreme Court hearings or, kind of rulings, I guess, that came out in April. But do you want to kind of give your spark notes on that just so everybody listening live can hear about the RVM and texting and stuff along the short of it?
Oh man, I'm actually the wrong person for that.
Are you? Because you don't do it.
Yeah. Because I don't do it. You know what I mean? But I get the emails and I'm obviously I'm up to date on all of the information that's going on in the world, but I don't know the exact. You may even know more information on it than me. All I really know is that it's going to affect people's ability to, send ringless voicemails and text messages, cold call text messages. That is really the gist that I know. I don't know much more than that for that particular subject. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I was just curious to hear your perspective, and it's funny because I knew it was going to be, putting an emphasis on digital and branding online.
My perspective on it is I get messages like that from like random things, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, why am I getting this text message? And and I get them all the time. They're annoying. I don't do it. It's the same reason I don't do bandit signs or cold calling, because yes, I'll probably get more deals that way, but I'm not about the deals. Like I don't want to represent my company in a bandit sign or a cold call or a random text message. I want to represent my company as one of the leaders in my market, and I want people to contact me because they want to do business with me. So it's a totally different mindset. So that, I think it's great. I don't think those types of messages should be going out to people. I think that if you want to market to people, you should do what all the big companies have been doing for all these years, and that's having a digital presence, or having a nice mail or whatever it is. But I think I don't like the cold calling, and I'm not like bashing anybody. I just as a salesperson, I hate to cold call, and I don't know anybody that loves it. That's why the turnover rate's so high, or why people use VAs, overseas people, because of course they'll do it, but nobody here wants to do it because it's, it's just not fun. And that's just not how I want to represent my company, so that's just my take on it. So yeah, I think it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings up a good foundational point of kind of just knowing your own preferences and how you want your business to be reflected. Because I know even I got my deal. Bill Bro is saying he got his first deal in 2013 after 8 months. I got my first deal starting off at the beginning of 2014 from a bandit sign. Just working under Dan's tutelage there. But it's good to just know kind of your preferences and things like that. The quick, long, and short, And again, everybody should look into their own legal research and in their local, state and market. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on TV. Just kidding. But pretty much the long and the short of it is, from the perspective I got from an interview with Vince Harris, which I was mentioning, is that pretty much RVMs are not looking good to send out. It sounds like you can get in some legal trouble for those. But it was actually a pretty big win for text message marketers, where you are allowed to text cold lists. I believe you can text people cold marketing as long as they're not on the do not call list. And we have a blog post with Vince. I believe it's investorfuse.com/blog. I can double check that really quick, but he goes into some of those rulings. But again, everybody should do their own local research for what's going on in their state. And then I believe, just to put a cap on that really quick, the texting is good to do cold as long as they're not on the do not disturb. And I think a lot of providers like Twilio, you're allowed to send up to 2,000 texts per day. So you may be limited as far as how many texts you can send in a day, as things have previously been. But this is going to be a pretty hot button or recurring theme or issue that tends to come up, because people, and you even see like Apple and like Apple commercials now, where they're taking away the third-party cooking, or you can put a preference in there if you want to be tracked, like ad tracked. They just started marketing those commercials. So it seems like a lot of those companies are starting to put marketing. They're looking kind of like the psychology of, hey, I want to be private. I don't want my data shared with all these companies where they can just send me advertisements and sell me stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm right there with them. I think they shouldn't be doing that stuff. I understand why they do it, but we'll see what happens. There's a lot of big companies that rely on that type of marketing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
For sure. Well, I'm sure we're still going to talk marketing and lead gen as we move forward here, and especially kind of how you made some pivots and changes during the pandemic year and everything like that. Let's tie that into team structure. Just kind of the last 6 years, what your team structure has looked like. Obviously, you have a big focus on sales and marketing with your background and all the digital stuff and online stuff that you're doing. But what was the team structure look like over the last 6 years?
Yeah, man. So, when I first started, I was pretty much doing everything myself for about a year and a half to 2 years. I am a big believer that you cannot hire somebody or farm something out. Sorry if you get some noises.
It's okay.
I'm a big believer that you can't farm something out or hire somebody to do a task that you can't even do yourself. So for me, it was about doing everything and understanding the entire process. And also, me, man, I'm all about slow growth. There's no rush. So my first year, I only did about 8 or 9 deals. But my second year, I did 42 or 44 deals. So big difference. And we've talked about this in the past, how I've changed, made myself different from a lot of the other wholesalers in the area. But at that point is when I started to hire. I had an acquisition guy who was also like my disposition guy. So it was just me and him for a while. And then eventually over time, I had an assistant, and then, we had another VA. I had a cold caller at one point, and then I brought on another just acquisitions person. So maybe at max, 5, 6 people over the last, 5 years. And then that changed when COVID hit. And I'm sure like a lot of other businesses, had to make a change and a pivot. Luckily for me, like my main disposition guy was also a good friend of mine. And it just, business really changed. It got a lot slower. But they say everything in life happens for a reason, and timing is everything. And he had been with me for about 2.5 years. I mean, he, got same age as me. He's got his own family. I think he was ready for the next step in his career. You know what I mean? So he left at that point, and it just ended up being kind of what I needed, because I was paying a lot. And I think what happens with a lot of people is they start to grow so fast that they don't realize that's cutting into your profits. And then I realized, was I paying him too much because he was my friend? Like, what was all that stuff? So not having him, obviously I got rid of the VA and the cold caller. So it's really just me, my assistant, and one other acquisition person. And obviously I'm able to capitalize a lot more now, because I'm the one that's pretty much doing a lot of the dispositions at this point. So that's changed. So I went from really not that much involvement the last, 2, 3 years, which I would say was probably not a good thing for me to do. I probably should have been more involved, to now being back, a little bit more involved in the business, which is really where I need to be able to sustain, the growth that I've done over these last years, and also just to maintain the lifestyle that I'm currently living. So that's been the big
Well,
difference. Just some change, little tweaks, and everything's kind of like right back to where it should be.
a lot of that goes to the point or the idea of life and business is always going to be, to a certain extent, some trial and error. And it's just good to have a rhythm to looking back and, every quarter or whatever rhythm you have every week, every quarter, depending on the meeting or the context, and just kind of seeing what's going and making educated, pivots if needed. I want to hear in the chat, guys, for those of you guys that are on live, we have a good bit of people here. How did your marketing expenses change? That'll be kind of the next question I tee up for you. How did your marketing expenses change at all about a year and a half ago when the pandemic first rolled out? And then I'm going to ask David's feedback or kind of his perspective on what he did during that period, because it kind of goes parallel with how his team, has expanded and contracted over the last 6 years. So put it in the chat, guys, if you're open to it. Let me know how your marketing budget first changed when COVID rolled out, about March, April 2020. Put in the chat there, and I'll ask David the same question. Chat or the Q&A. And also, this is live, guys. You guys have the opportunity to ask one of my favorite people in the space questions about his business. So don't be shy if you're on live here. Cool. And David, you could hit on that, man, kind of like the March, April marketing and team structure.
Yeah, so I'll be completely honest. I don't think I probably did the best thing in the world, but like you said, it was trial and error. I would say in the very beginning of the pandemic, we were still probably riding a high from the previous year. Everyone thinking things are going to be fine. And I think right in the beginning, I'm sure you can recall, in the beginning of the pandemic, you heard a lot about the iBuyers stopping their online marketing.
Yep.
Right. That was kind of like a thing that a lot of people were talking about, and, is this a time for you to capitalize on some of that? And I already had a pretty substantial marketing budget at that time. And I thought, let me try to maybe potentially capitalize. So I increased my marketing budget. But that didn't really change anything. And I did that probably for about, maybe 3 or 4 months until I realized it was just unsustainable. And then I had to obviously, make some changes with that for sure. So I don't know a single person in real estate that has an idea or a pulse on the market right now and what's going on. I think everyone legitimately is still trying to figure things out, right? But that's what I did in the beginning of the pandemic, was try to potentially capitalize, but it did not work for me, and which I very quickly had to start to reduce the budget and just shift things around so that it was working. Mm-hmm. But that was my experience.
Yeah. Some feedback. You and Ricky Howell are in the same boat of kind of what I saw just from a general landscape of people that doubled down or tripled down on their marketing expense at the beginning, where most people either pulled back a little bit or stopped just to kind of see what was going on. The iBuyers were stopping. That was kind of like a lead indicator to what some people were doing. Yeah. So I do like that you and Ricky Howell zigged while other people were zagging. That's kind of my general compass as well. And then Greg Bilbro from geoflip, CEO geoflip, he wants to know, how does David define a PPC lead? And where do you see your cost per lead going in the next 6 months, year, 2 years?
Let's talk about the cost per click, right? I think the fact that I've started doing Google PPC ads for 4 or 5 years now, I think that puts me in a good position to have a better cost per click than anyone starting out today. So naturally, Google's only going to increase over the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, right? I can't control the cost of that, but I think that my cost per click will be pretty on par for my market, and it's expensive. There's no other way to put it. It's expensive for sure. As far as how do I define a PPC lead, well, a lot of my business is set up and the ads are all set up so that when a lead comes in, it'll kind of tell me if it's from a PPC campaign, if it's from a Facebook ad, or if it's from organic SEO. So I rely on that information. I rely on that KPI, and I have it set up so that I see where all the leads are coming from. So that's how I define a PPC lead, is one that comes specifically from an ad that I'm running versus something that's organic. So hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully that makes sense on the cost per click. But I see it going up, which is why, Facebook and Bing and Yelp, somebody else brought that up. There's other things you can try that'll be less expensive, but you have to give those enough time to actually see if they work. A lot of people will try something for a month and say it doesn't work. Well, that's not trying something. 3 to 6 months is trying something. But yeah, I think cost is only going to go up because more and more people are going to be going into the online space.
Before we talk about dispoing deals and how you did that, and it's funny because you texted me a picture at the pool the other day after a closing, which was funny, like yesterday or 2 days ago, which was hilarious to see. But in some of the marketing stuff that we were sending out, or the emails we were sending out, we were talking about how now you're pretty much doing roughly 50 to 60 transactions per year here, enjoying life with the family, partner, daughter. Awesome to see you guys hang at the pool and everything.
Yeah, man.
But half of those deals are coming from your network. How much does that go hand in hand with building the online credibility and just being methodical and having a structure around getting the Google reviews and building credibility and stuff like that? You kind of want to hit that with a broad stroke.
Yeah, man, it's all together, like when you do the right things, good things happen and people want to work with you. So you're absolutely right. Half my business comes from my network. So if I do on average 50 deals a year, 25% will come from my marketing. The other 25% will come from my network. And that network consists of other wholesalers, real estate agents and brokers, other investors, and just other people I may know within the industry that is potentially looking to unload a deal. So one of the things that I have done in my market is become kind of like a go-to guy. I have built my buyers list very, very large organically. I don't pay for lists or anything like that. When you post up, join my buyers list, and here's the link. When you do that enough times over 5 years in the right places, you will build your buyers list. And organically, I've been able to put on about a few thousand buyers. Everyone in my market knows that. So when everyone in your market knows that, and you start to close deals with one guy and he tells somebody else, you become kind of like the go-to guy in your area. And anyone that wants to, you should listen to my podcast with Carlos that we originally did. I talk about wholesaling commercial properties and wholesaling multifamily units. All of those things can be done the same way you're doing these single family homes. And so I've just been able to put myself in that position as being the go-to guy in my market to unload off-market deals. So, and those are free leads, and they're always coming in constantly. And you want to hear something funny? The deal that I just closed, that I sent you a picture of, that I was at the pool. Do you know who gave me that lead? It was my old disposition manager who just left me to work for like another bigger company. He sent me that lead so that we could close it together. So
Love that.
now I have an old employee. He was a friend too, so let's call him a friend, but an old employee who just left, still in the real estate business, still continuing to do deals with me. I mean, what else could you ask for? And you're right, that deal closed right after Memorial Day weekend. So at 12 o'clock, when I sent you that picture, I had totally forgot it was closing until I got the email saying, deal's closed. And, I didn't do anything other than take that lead from him and send that deal to my buyers list. And it was sold within, a few hours, and, you're collecting checks later. Like what could be better than that?
Love that. On the screen share recording that we have, guys, that we can send out if you just shoot us an email, answers@investorfuse.com, plural. We go through some of it. We go through David's site, things like that. Do you want to share your open rate on emails when you're sending out deals, just to give perspective of quality of your buyers list?
So I think, it doesn't matter how big your buyers list is. It's all about the open rate. How many people are actually opening it up? In real estate in general, the average is about 12 to 16%. That's what most people get, including agents. I get anywhere from 35 to 65% open rate on my emails. And I do that just because I take the time to, I scrub the list, the way I compose the emails, the verbiage that's in the emails. It just takes time to like learn all this stuff. But if you put one wrong thing in your email, the email service providers are going to flag it as spam and junk. So, somebody's sending me, somebody put here, what email service? I use MailChimp. I don't think that one's better than the other. Once again, it comes down to not the service provider, more so the content you're putting in the email. If it looks spammy, if it's like cash and lots of parentheses and exclamation marks, it's going to go into spam and junk no matter what. So taking the time to understand that, how to optimize that will give you better results for sure. And then a lot of what people don't do, which is surprising to me, is they'll send an email out, but they won't do like a resend to the people who didn't open it up the first time. And sometimes you need to do that again and again and again. So it's just a numbers game. But once again, these are the things that are going to separate you from your competition. These are the things that are going to get deals actually sold. So taking the time to understand your emails and what you're sending out is also super, super important.
Mm-hmm. Justin is actually in Philadelphia as well. What's up, Justin? I'd be happy to connect you guys if you're not familiar. I'm sure you guys could do some business together at some point, which would be awesome.
I work with so many people in Philly. It's ridiculous. So yeah, the more the merrier for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll connect you guys after this afternoon. And also, I'm just thinking in my head too, if you had any type of template you could share just for dispositions, I think that would be enough. That would be helpful enough for people that are watching this live, just to kind of see different templates for marketing a property as well, because there's a lot that goes into it that gets you in the 50% open rates versus the industry standard 12 to 16%, I believe you said.
I've been playing with it. It's something that I'm also actively always messing with. My template's always changing because I'm always like trying new things, but I'll be happy to to share what I have for sure.
Mm-hmm. That is a good life principle. Always looking to see where you can get more efficient and optimize everything. It's good to hear for sure. Guys, if you have any questions, I see a lot of familiar faces on here, which is awesome. I appreciate you hanging out here in the middle of the day. Feel free to send those questions in. All right, let's help Justin out here. Justin said, just for those of you guys who aren't on the chat, I'll read it out loud. I sent an email to buyers last week and none of them got flagged. Then I sent out the list again, including a 25K discount. And then after about 200 emails, everything got blocked. I'm totally confused.
Hard to answer.
Yeah, it's troubleshooting a little bit.
But if you go back and listen to what I said, if you're using terms like discount, reduced, cash buyer needed now, like must sell, if you're using that type of language anywhere in there, it's going to get flagged. Maybe it's something in the subject line. It could be so many things. Also, for a lot of the new people, if you're sending out emails and you don't have a company name, meaning that it's coming from Justin at Gmail or something like that, those are more likely to get flagged as spam. I am not the expert at this. This is just like some basic stuff that I do know. So if you have a company name, it's always better to have your name at your company. So for example, I'm David at phillyhomeinvestor.com. Less of a chance that that's going to go into spam or junk versus something that's coming from your Gmail or your Yahoo or your Hotmail account that I still see people using. So there's so many things that could be troubleshooted.
Gotcha. Yeah, Justin, let us know if he said that was today. Let us know if you have any additional questions on that. We're going to talk a little bit about InvestorFuse now and how David and his team have used it over the years. I think you've been with us probably between 2 and 3 years.
Yeah, I jumped on when you guys first launched the 2.0. And I was already using a CRM at that time, but I knew what you guys were coming out with was something that I needed, especially with having a small team, especially having the being able to put people into like auto campaigns and things like that. So yeah, I've been with you guys ever since. I think I was one of the first people that signed up, actually.
And that's how we originally got linked to do our first podcast a couple years ago. And we do have that video, guys. Shoot an email to answers@investorfuse.com to see the actual screen share. We had to do some editing on the seller's contact information and property just to be fully respectful of everybody there. But yeah, we'd love to hear how you use InvestorFuse kind of as your day-to-day. We've heard kind of we've heard over the last 6 years, kind of what different hats you wear in the business and kind of what you're focused on, sales and marketing background, handling a lot of the dispo, comping different stuff in Philly. And we can talk a little bit about expanding to Florida as well, but kind of on a day-to-day basis, how are you using IF3 right now?
Very minimally.
Love that.
And I think, as an owner of the company, I'm not making sales calls, so I'm not going through the leads. So that's not something that I'm doing on a daily basis, but, I'm looking at it from a bird's eye view. So, I'll start with just the campaigns, because there's a section that you can track to see how many leads you're getting versus, this month versus last month. So your basic KPIs, very, very basic, but mainly I'm using it to interact with my acquisition guy. So, new leads come in, I get a notification, of course, because I want to see the leads. I want to see where it's coming from. It's not like I'm getting 100 a day. But the leads also go to my acquisitions guy. And generally from there, if he has questions for me or if he goes on the appointment, and he'll send it to me to do the final comps. So I do comp all of the properties. Once again, I'm not getting 100 leads a day. Like, I have the time to do this. I want it done right. So, the lead will come to me, we'll comp the property together, and I'll send it back to him with my notes. This is where I'd like to try to get the property in. I'll give him a range. I'll give him some comps, some ARVs and things like that, some ammunition. But that's basically it. Just that back and forth between my acquisitions guy. That is really how I'm using it on a weekly basis. And then, like I said, just basic KPI stuff. Where are the leads coming from and how many? But nothing more than that at this point.
I love the beginning of your answer because it's similar to last month's case study with Michael Stansberry, awesome guy out of Memphis Invest. As the owner operator, and that's the intention that we have for a lot of owner operators that use the system, at least in some point, to be moving in the direction where they're in the CRM as least of their day as possible, where they're doing higher dollar per hour tasks, and they essentially have a team in there that's doing the data management, touching leads as fast as they come in, updating everything in there. And they're really just doing some communication with their team and looking at high level KPIs and stuff like that. I've seen many of Instagram stories of David's that we've been friends on Instagram over the last couple of years. where he's just showing his dashboard and close deals for the month and
I
close deals
mean,
for the year, which is awesome.
at the end of the day, man, there's so many people that I know that are like, they're, they're just spending their time on KPIs and this and that. At the end of the day, it does not matter. Are you making money or you're not making money? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it comes down to. Are you living life and enjoying life, or are you working 40 hours a week?
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to sit in my computer and look at KPIs. I want to see that leads are coming in and I want to see that leads are closing. And that's all I really care about. If I didn't have anybody, I would be living in that CRM. And it's a great I don't even want to call it a CRM, but it's a great CRM because of all the functions you guys have put into it. It's so much easier than the one that I was using previously, especially for like tasks for yourself, the dashboard. It really, and being able to leave no lead left behind. That was actually the
Mm-hmm.
main reason that I went with you guys, because my other CRM was free, right? Why change?
Mm-hmm.
But being able to put somebody in an auto sequence was something that I needed. And that's probably what most people need. But from a business owner's perspective and what I'm doing now, I don't think I need to do anything more at this point. And it shows me everything that I need, plain and simple. So it makes it a lot easy.
I love it. Yeah, and I mean, a typical day for you, you're kind of logging in just from us talking, and I know we talked before, kind of logging in, and we made it super simple with the actions, which I kind of call a digital to-do list, where it defaults, it just shows you a chronological to-do list of what you're responsible for doing, and then it's a nice filter button that you can just click and see everybody on your team. So David's able to just go in there, kind of see what his acquisition guy has due, and then with his notification setup, how they're set up, he's able to get pinged. You can get email notifications or text messages directly to your phone, which is awesome on the latest InvestorFuse version IF3. Just so you can kind of be at the loop, you can be chilling at the pool and see that you got assigned to comp a property if it's a weird nook and cranny in Philly or something that he wants you to comp out for him or something like
I'm
that.
doing it. I'm doing everything at the pool these days, man.
I love that.
um,
Absolutely love that.
yeah. So I mean, that's basically from a bird's eye view is how I'm using it, and I think anyone that's a business owner, you don't really need to do more than that. You guys provide all the great tools for it, so definitely, which is why I continue to use it.
Appreciate that, man. And I'm excited to be a business partner with you. Over the years and a friend first and foremost. I want to talk a little bit just because we do have a lot of familiar faces on here. I want to talk a little bit about your expansion into Florida and what that looks like. What made you do that? How that has been going so far. We have some Philly people in the building, so I'm sure they'd be interested to hear Justin. Mike Borger has some Philly roots or some PA roots, and then I'm trying to see if there's any other Philly people in the room. But yeah, we'd love to hear kind of just in general your philosophy behind expanding to Florida and maybe how that compares and contrasts to Philly.
So first and foremost, I moved to Florida. Lived in the city my entire life. It was a big move for me and my family, but just like my parents left, for a better life for me, I knew I'd do the same thing for mine. So Florida's been great. And then getting into the market, how am I doing it? Honestly, slow. The same exact way that I did it when I first started in Philly. Nothing has changed. I didn't just like set up shop and then just start blasting out, letters and online leads. Totally slow, totally methodically. I would say the first thing that I started to do was build my buyers list. That's the first thing I started to do. And then the second was build my network. And the craziest thing is, as soon as I started to build my network, I already started to get a bunch of agents and title companies. And guess what? Half of them are like right next door to me in the shopping center that's like across the street, So like how convenient is that? That, I moved to a new place. I've already established a really nice connection and network, some of which are right next door to me. And I'm slowly building a buyer's list. And I'm slowly also getting my name out as, it's a lot easier to say, hey, I'm an investor in Philly for the last 5 years. I'm bringing my company down here. Who wants to connect? It's a
Hmm.
lot easier than, hey, I'm a new guy. I don't know anything. Let's work together.
Right.
So when you put out the right content, people will come to you. So it's slow and steady. I already have other agents and wholesalers sending me free leads that I'm sending out, to my Florida buyers list. And so it's going just the way it went in Philly, probably a little bit slower because I'm still concentrating in the Philadelphia market and also the surrounding, areas. But I would say that there's a bright future down here for sure for Florida. I mean, it's expanding beyond belief. I think the latest numbers are there's about 1,000 people moving to Florida per day,
That's wild.
which is about 100 families if you do the numbers accurately like that, and all areas of Florida, and I see it in other areas as well. So I never was really interested in kind of like virtual wholesaling, but I guess now I'm technically virtual wholesaling in Philadelphia now that I moved down here.
Hmm.
So why not break into another market if I can, and who knows where that'll go in the future. But it's going slow and steady, man.
Love it. Quick question on paid marketing channels. Do you have any context with the various paid marketing channels as to what different channels deliver in terms of cost per deal? So I guess do you have any metrics around like how much it takes to get a deal for the different marketing methods that you're doing?
You know, as a rule of thumb, everyone says for every 10 leads you get, you should be able to close like, two or three of them, right? And I would say that's probably on par with what we're doing. But context as far as paid marketing channels, I would say my two main, actually no, I would say my main marketing channel is Google PPC. I've tried Facebook in the past. Facebook works for a lot of people. It did not work for me. Um, it brought me a ton of leads, but they were not quality leads. So I think you have to, and I know you said you have some PPC guys on here, maybe they can chime in, but you have to decide, do you want quality or quantity? It's very easy to get quantity, but the quality might not be that great. And then also, let's be honest, the close rate also comes down to your processes and systems. When that lead comes in, how long does it take for you or your teammate to make that phone call to that person? How are those skills? And we can get to a whole nother topic. But as far as my various paid marketing channels, I really only have one right now, and that's Google and a little bit of Bing, which is Microsoft's search provider. But those are my two main channels. Um, Cost per deal is high. Let's just say on average, it could be $500 to $1,000 per lead, or yeah, about that.
Yeah.
That's what it is in my market. Um, with that being said, my average fee is 10K plus. So I'm happy to spend 500 to 1,000 if I can make 10,000 plus. In my market, sometimes it's even more than that, but you're gonna have to play with those numbers. But that's what it is for me.
Hmm.
Give,
And I mean,
give, give or take. I don't know to the penny.
yeah, no, I mean that makes sense. That, like the numbers you were saying, as far as how many you can close out of 10 leads versus how much a lead would cost you, I think that definitely makes sense. And that's why you put an emphasis on networking and referrals and kind of all the foundational stuff where you're going to have other investors bringing you deals that you can close, which is evergreen. It's not costing you anything. You're not swiping your credit card for it.
I know plenty of people that their whole business is just selling other people's deals.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. You do what's best for you, but man, free leads are amazing. Free leads are so amazing, right? And not just the free leads, but it's like, it feels good to know you're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
Wholesalers in general get a bad rap, And it's generally because of people who really are missing a lack of education on what a wholesaler does. But, go read my Google reviews, like for the exception of some people I know in my network, those are all real people that were in situations. They came to us for help, and we were able to help not just sell the property, but to help that situation. And I think if more people treat what they're doing like that, they'll have more success. You know what I mean? And it's hard in the beginning because you're just trying to get that first deal or that second deal, and you got bills to pay. I totally get it. But if you do the right thing from the beginning and you lay the right bricks, it'll pay for you down the road. And down the road, you won't have to do as much work, if that makes sense.
Definitely does. Great mental framework to come from, just thinking about what type of solutions you can provide the sellers instead of just straight numbers. It's a great mental framework to come from. David, to kind of put a cap on this thing, man, we've heard a lot of things that have made you successful. The emphasis on brand building and online presence, being able to work and cultivate relationships with other investors, wholesalers, get about half of your transactions fed to you from other investors. Different mental frameworks, perspectives, philosophy that you have. In addition to that, man, to kind of close this thing out, what do you think could be most helpful for people on this call? And we have people ranging from more so beginner to very experienced, seasoned people on this call.
Always be a student. Always be a student of the game. Like I started this first with, I'm a martial artist for life. I started training when I was 5. I'm 41 now. I've been doing Muay Thai for over 25 years. I've fought professionally. Now I'm getting to the point where, I'm getting older. I want something that I can do for the rest of my life. Muay Thai is a little hard on the body, right? It's hard to be cracking those pads and getting kicked. So, now I started doing jujitsu, and I'm sure people know what jujitsu is, but
Robert Shortsleeves is on. He's a martial artist as well.
Yeah. So, it's good to be a white belt again. It's good to be a student again. And if you have that mindset of always being a student instead of thinking you're the smartest guy in the room, you will get much farther in life. Just always evolving and always learning. I think stagnation and comfortability are like the two biggest issues in our world today. So like for me, my biggest advice is just have an open mind and be a student of the game and constantly learn. But there's a lot of people out there that are always learning, but never applying. You don't want to be that person either. Right? What's that word for people that are taking all the courses and reading all the stuff, but never applying it, right?
Like maybe for lack of a better term, paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, man. Don't be that guy. You know what I mean? Don't be that guy. Be okay with failing, because that's where you're going to learn. If you're scared of that, or you're unsure because you think someone's going to say something negative, or we have to get past that. We all have to evolve and learn and just keep on moving, right? Like I said in the very beginning, slow progress is like the best progress. You can't rush anything. I can't go into the jiu-jitsu gym and think I can tap out a blue belt, right? That's just not going to happen. Doesn't matter how much Muay Thai experience I have. It doesn't matter if I can knock you out. That dude's going to choke me out in like 2 seconds, right? So I need to check my ego and just go baby steps and be okay with failure over and over and over again until you figure it out. So that is my advice. It's hard. I know it's hard, but that is like what it takes for you to be able to live a life that you're not going to regret. Because I think most people, they say like 90% of people who die like have regrets in life. Could have done this, could have did that. We know that. Don't be that person.
Love it, man. Leave the ego at the door. Love it, yeah. Robert said.
I'll leave it on that note.
That is a powerful message. I definitely agree with that. One thing this year I've been trying to drill into my own internal mental operating system is just massive imperfect action. Even though I did that before, I'm just putting more of a re-emphasis on it. Like, it's never going to be the perfect time to do anything. You could always do more research or try to get more insight or reviews on something, but just taking action, having a rhythm to how you reflect, and seeing what type of adjustments or pivots you can make,
Yeah, man.
is a good way to live and good way to be.
Yeah, man. I'm right there with you. You know, like what you just said. There's always going to be something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always going to be something that's going to prevent you or stopping you from doing what you want. You know, so someone told me a long time ago, I'll never forget it. You can only control the things that you have control over.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else. So, you know, like this last year, we had no control over the pandemic and anything else, but we did have control over how we reacted and the things that we did during this time. You know, did you learn something new? Did you work on your business? Did you work on the relationships with your family? You know, like, what are you doing? It's, you know, oh man, I listened to an amazing interview the other day. Maybe I'll leave it on this. This might be hopefully this isn't too deep for everybody, but I'll leave it. I think you'll love this one. So if you go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, man only had one thing. They only cared about one thing. You know what it was? Survival, right? Because we had to fend off the dinosaurs, right? We had the spears. We had to get our own food. Ice Age. I mean, human beings have endured craziness just for survival. Now, fast forward, we don't have to worry about survival anymore. It's a given. You know what the issue now is? Search for meaning. People are searching for meaning. That's why we have a high death rate, suicide rate. Think about that, man. Survival is guaranteed, but yet people are killing themselves in droves, medicating themselves, all in the search for meaning. When I listened to this interview, I was like blown away because I never heard anybody talk about it that way. And it's really got me thinking, right? Because how many people do you know, especially being an entrepreneur, that are talking about meaning and purpose? Mm-hmm. That's what everybody's searching for.
Mm-hmm. Something good to think about when you're in your day-to-day business. Something good to think about every single morning, every single day. For sure. What interview is that?
So he's a jiu-jitsu coach.
A jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah, his name is John Danaher. I can't spell the last name. He's a pretty famous guy, and it's a 15-minute video where he talks about the meaning of life. It's like somebody. I think the title is like, John Danaher goes deep into the meaning of life, and it's like a 15-minute video, and this is all he talks about. And I was so sucked in, you know, because he's so methodical and very smart. And like I said, I never heard anybody ever talk about it like that before. It was very, yeah. Go listen to it.
I love it, man. Short sleeves. Oh, but we're having some. Bridget said searching for meaning and purpose. Thank you, Bridget. And short sleeves just sent over a YouTube link. I'm gonna pop that open and mute it really quick.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. You got it. Yeah, that's the one. Short sleeve just sent that over.
Awesome. Listen to it, man. It has nothing to do with real estate. It's just about life. And I mean, I don't know anybody that could listen to that and not just be like, damn, there's truth and meaning to that, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. Well, David, like I said, man, very appreciative of you and your time. This has been an awesome interview. Guys, shoot an email to answer@investorfuse.com for the bonus clip of this, where David's going through his Carrot site and his InvestorFuse. And we're having similar conversation, but it's more so like a screen share, tool share. David's doing, but yeah, man, you're the man. Appreciate your friendship over the years and just being able to hit you up with random book requests or, you know, all things random, while also sending me pics of at the pool while you're closing real estate deals.
My pleasure, man. Hopefully I was able to, just share my experience the last few years. This has been great. It's been a life changer for me. I've been able to get out of the corporate world and to anybody listening to this, I'm not like some millionaire. I'm not rolling around in Ferraris and Lambos, even though I maybe subconsciously want to. But I'm able to live life on my own terms. And that's really why I got into this. And Carlos is right, man. I'm by the pool, I'm at the beach, and I'm spending time with my family and doing things that I love, like jujitsu and fishing and being outdoors. And I think that's why we all got into this. So don't forget that.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you guys for checking this out. Looks like pretty much everybody stayed on to the end that was awesome. Listening and watching this live. We'll be sending out, if you registered for this, you'll automatically get the replay as well. And then we'll be repurposing this as a podcast on all the audio platforms and YouTube and everything. So thank you guys. Looks like it's a bright sunny day out there for those on the East Coast. Justin, I'll also get your number and connect you with David directly just so you guys can talk Philly real estate as well. Thank you guys for all the kind words. Thank you. So good. Yeah, definitely provide a lot of good stuff, man. Your perspectives and insights are very valuable.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Awesome, man. Always. Awesome, man. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.